We only invited you out of kindness. For a brief moment, no one reacted. Not because the sentence was unclear, but because it had landed exactly where it was meant to. Ilara Vale sat still, her fingers resting lightly against the edge of her plate. She felt the shift before she saw it. The quiet at the table sharpened, smiles stiffened. Someone took a slow sip of wine. Her mother-in-law's voice had been gentle, almost warm, as though she had offered a compliment instead of a boundary. Ilara looked up. "I'm sorry," she said calmly. "Oh, nothing unkind," the woman replied, lifting her glass. "I just meant you shouldn't feel pressured to attend every family gathering. These environments can be unfamiliar." Cassian froze beside her. His hand tightened slightly on his fork. Ilara nodded once. "I'm comfortable here." His sister leaned back in her chair, studying Ilara with open curiosity. "You've been very quiet tonight." "I listen more than I speak," Ilara said. "That's probably wise," her brother-in-law added. "This family has a way of overwhelming people." Ilara met his gaze. "Only if they allow it." The table fell silent again. The sentence lingered, thin and sharp, dressed up as generosity. Kindness, offered from a place of authority, always carried conditions. Have you ever been present somewhere and still feel like an obligation? Ilara knew that feeling intimately. It wasn't announced. It wasn't shouted. It existed in pauses, in who was acknowledged and who was tolerated. She had learned long ago how to read those signs. Cassian leaned toward her. "You okay?" he asked softly. "I'm fine," she said. He searched her face, unsure. "We don't have to stay long." "It's fine," she repeated, though this time her eyes stayed on the table. Across from them, Cassian's mother smiled politely. "We were just discussing the new acquisition. It's complicated." "I read the preliminary filings," Ilara said. "The structure raises questions." The woman blinked. "You follow that sort of thing?" "I follow many things." A brief pause followed. Someone cleared their throat. "Well," Cassian's sister said, "not everyone has the same exposure." Ilara smiled faintly. "Exposure comes in different forms." No one responded. Conversation resumed without her. She listened, not because she was excluded, but because she was measuring something she couldn't yet name. The cabin sat high above the valley, framed by snow and pine, every angle intentional. Nothing here asked for approval. Wealth didn't perform in this family. It assumed. Ilara had arrived just before dusk, her breath fogging slightly as she stood at the entrance. She remembered smoothing her sleeves, lifting her chin, reminding herself that belonging wasn't something to be granted. It was something to be claimed. Inside, warmth wrapped around polished wood and glass walls. Laughter echoed easily. History lived here, confident and unchallenged. Ilara, her mother-in-law, had said earlier, "You must find this place intimidating." Ilara met her eyes. "I don't." Cassian smiled then, proud but uncertain. He loved her, deeply. What he struggled with was interruption, speaking when silence kept the peace. Now, at the table, he shifted. That comment earlier, his mother waved a hand. "It was nothing." Ilara glanced at him. "It's okay." He hesitated. The moment passed. She noted that too. Plates were passed. Wine was poured. Conversations moved carefully around her, like water around stone. "Mergers are delicate," Cassian's uncle said. "They require transparency," Ilara replied. He raised a brow. "That's optimistic." "It's practical." Her mother-in-law set her fork down. "You have strong opinions. I have informed ones." Cassian inhaled sharply, a warning he didn't voice. "Well," his sister said lightly, "it's nice that you try to keep up." Ilara turned to her. "I don't try." Silence followed. Her mother-in-law smiled again, patient, controlled. "We're simply grateful you could join us." There it was again. Gratitude expected. Presence framed as a favor. Ilara placed her napkin carefully on her lap. She understood now. This wasn't about conversation. It was about positioning. "We only invited you out of kindness." The sentence returned, clearer this time. Final. Elara placed her napkin on the table. "Thank you for dinner," she said. "I'm feeling tired." Cassian looked up. "We can leave together." She shook her head. "Stay. It's important." "I'll walk you out," he insisted. "You don't need to," she replied gently. His mother nodded approvingly. "Rest is important." Elara met her gaze. "So is respect." No one followed her as she stood. Chairs didn't move. Conversation resumed before the door fully closed behind her. Outside, the cold met her sharply. She welcomed it. It cleared her head. Inside, comfort returned quickly. Elara stood still for a moment, her breath steady, the snow untouched beneath her feet. They believed silence meant agreement. They believed endurance meant acceptance. They believed kindness, offered from above, could define worth. They were wrong. Elara had never mistaken restraint for surrender. She observed. She remembered. She prepared. Inside the cabin, laughter rose again, louder than before. Outside, clarity settled in its place. If you've ever been underestimated without being confronted, stay with this story. Because this isn't about anger. It's about consequence. Elara didn't rush back inside after stepping into the cold. She stayed where she was, letting the quiet settle. Silence had always been familiar to her. It was where she learned the most. Growing up, she had watched rooms carefully, not because she was afraid to speak, but because speaking too soon often cost more than it gained. People revealed themselves when they believed they were unchallenged. "You don't talk much," an older cousin once told her when she was younger. "I do," Elara replied. "Just not to everyone." That lesson stayed with her. She learned early that the loudest voices weren't the most powerful. They were often the most anxious. Control lived in preparation, in timing, in understanding what people wanted before they said it. At home, decisions were practical. Choices mattered. There wasn't space for waste, of money, of energy, of words. Her mother used to say, "Observe first. Decide later." Elara carried that forward. She listened. She noticed patterns. Who interrupted whom? Who waited to be acknowledged? Who mistook volume for authority? Standing outside the row cabin, she exhaled slowly. What happened inside hadn't surprised her. It had confirmed something she already knew. Elara never framed her past as something to overcome. It wasn't a burden. It was training. She learned how systems worked because she needed to. Bills, schedules, negotiations. None of it was optional. Competence wasn't praised. It was expected. "You're very self-sufficient," a former colleague once remarked. Elara smiled. It saves time. That efficiency followed her everywhere. She didn't need excess to feel secure. She needed clarity. When she met Cassian's family for the first time, she noticed how easily they confused abundance with insight. Conversations moved fast, but decisions took longer. Authority came from names, not outcomes. "You don't say much," Cassian's mother had commented then too. "I prefer accuracy," Elara replied. Cassian laughed softly, squeezing her hand. "She's usually right." His mother smiled, but her eyes lingered longer than necessary. Elara recognized that look. It wasn't dislike. It was recalculation. People often underestimated what they didn't understand. Elara didn't correct them. She let them continue. Over time, Elara noticed something else. Power wasn't always visible. It sat with the people others deferred to without realizing it. At a dinner once, Cassian's uncle dominated the conversation until his wife cleared her throat. He stopped immediately. Elara leaned toward Cassian later. "She runs that room." Cassian blinked. "What?" "She decides when things move forward." He laughed. "You read too much into things." She didn't argue. Elara learned that influence wasn't about being seen. It was about being necessary. Loud people demanded attention. Quiet ones received compliance. This understanding shaped how she moved through Cassian's world. She didn't interrupt. She didn't compete. She listened and stored information carefully. "You're always watching," Cassian said once, half amused. She smiled. It's a habit. He kissed her temple. You make people nervous. I make them honest. That was true. Silence invited assumptions, and assumptions revealed priorities. Elara met Cassian during a period when he was tired of being needed for the wrong reasons. You don't ask me for anything, he said once, surprised. I ask questions, she replied. They talked for hours without agendas, no deals, no positioning, just curiosity. I don't know who people are without money involved, he admitted. Elara looked at him steadily, then stopped paying attention to what they want. With her, there was no performance, no pressure to impress. Their connection wasn't dramatic. It was steady, intentional. This feels easy, he said one night. It's supposed to, she replied. Their love worked because it existed outside expectation. Privately, they understood each other. Publicly, the structure around them hadn't adjusted. Elara noticed that too. Marriage changed the setting, not the bond. But settings mattered. Cassian loved her deeply. He just didn't know how to challenge what had shaped him. My family means well, he said once. They mean what they're used to, Elara replied. At gatherings, he softened, deferred, chose peace over interruption. You could have said something, she told him gently after one dinner. I didn't want to make it worse. She nodded. I know. That was the fracture. Not absence of love, absence of protection. Elara adjusted without complaint. She learned when to speak and when to remain still. She understood that confronting systems head-on often triggered defense, not change. She wasn't passive. She was patient. Outside the cabin, Elara turned toward the trees. The cold sharpened her thoughts. She had seen this pattern before. Affection without advocacy. Inclusion without authority. Silence had taught her something important. Time revealed truth faster than confrontation. People show you who they are when they believe nothing is at risk. Elara had been watching long enough. She didn't raise her voice. She didn't demand space. She simply stopped assuming things would correct themselves. Inside the cabin, comfort continued. Outside, resolve settled quietly. Some lessons aren't learned through conflict. They're learned through observation, boundaries, and the courage to recognize when adaptation has reached its limit. And Elara had reached hers. After that winter dinner, Elara noticed how invitations were worded. Mother wants everyone present, Cassian said one morning, tying his cufflinks. It's important. Important never meant warm. It meant observed. At the next gathering, Elara felt it immediately. The way conversations paused when she entered. The way smiles arrived late. Sit here, Cassian's mother said, guiding her chair slightly away from him. Elara complied. You've been busy, her sister-in-law said. Still working on your little projects? They're not little, Elara replied. Oh, of course, the woman said lightly. I just meant personal. Cassian cleared his throat. Elara does consulting. Yes, his mother said. On her own. The emphasis lingered. Elara smiled. Independence suits me. Her mother-in-law nodded slowly, as if making a note. We'll see. Dinner continued, but Elara felt the evaluation happening in real time. Who she spoke to, what she knew, how much space she took. It wasn't cruelty. It was measurement. And Elara had learned long ago how to recognize assessments disguised as hospitality. It started with small exclusions. We'll just be a minute, Cassian's brother said, standing. Family business. Elara remained seated. Later, she asked, What was that about? Cassian shrugged. Estate stuff. You didn't want my input. It wasn't relevant. She studied his face. To whom? He hesitated. It's complicated. Soon, those moments multiplied. Meetings scheduled when she was busy. Conversations lowered when she approached. One evening, she caught part of a discussion through a half-open door. She wouldn't understand, someone said. Elara stepped inside. Understand what? Silence. Cassian's mother smiled. Nothing important. Elara nodded. Then, I won't worry. But she did worry. Not about the content, about the decision being made without her. She didn't argue. She noted it. Power didn't announce itself. It rearranged access. The words were always gentle. You must be overwhelmed. You're adjusting so well. We don't expect you to know these things. Ilara answered calmly each time. I learn quickly. One afternoon, Cassian found her reading financial documents. You don't need to do that, he said. I want to. They don't expect you to. She looked up. That's the problem. He sighed. They're just being considerate. Considerate to whom? He didn't answer. Ilara closed the folder. She understood now. Courtesy was being used to limit her reach. Inclusion without authority. Warmth without respect. She didn't push back. Not yet. If you're noticing what Ilara's noticing, you already know this story isn't about revenge. It was about timing. Cassian loved her. That never changed. But love didn't rewrite instincts overnight. Why does it matter so much? He asked once. Because silence becomes agreement if it lasts long enough, Ilara replied. He ran a hand through his hair. You want me to confront them? I want you to notice. He sat heavily. They raised me, and I married you, she said. The words settled between them. He wanted peace. She wanted clarity. At dinners, he laughed when expected, smoothed edges, chose comfort. You didn't say anything, Ilara said after one gathering. I didn't want to start something. She nodded. You didn't. The disappointment wasn't loud. It was cumulative. Cassian felt it. He just didn't know how to fix it yet. Ilara didn't confront the family. She adjusted her approach. She asked fewer questions publicly. She listened more closely. She documented patterns privately. You're being very patient, Cassian said. I'm being deliberate. She knew resistance without leverage only strengthened structures. She needed understanding before action. At a luncheon, Cassian's mother remarked, You're very agreeable lately. Ilara smiled. I'm learning the rhythm. That was true. She noticed who decided seating, who ended discussions, who waited for approval. She wasn't invisible. She was gathering information. Endurance wasn't surrender. It was preparation. One evening, Ilara stood alone on the balcony, listening to voices drift through glass. They'll come around, Cassian said behind her. Maybe, she replied. But systems don't change because they're asked nicely. He frowned. So what do you want? I want awareness, she said. Yours. Mine already exists. He didn't respond. Ilara watched the lights below, thinking clearly. Marriage had placed her inside a structure that wasn't built for her voice. She could either fight blindly or understand it fully. She chose understanding. Some environments don't open because they were never designed to. Knowing that difference matters, it teaches when to endure, when to step back, and when preparation is wiser than confrontation. Ilara had stopped waiting for permission. And the quiet shift had already begun. Ilara saw the listing before anyone mentioned it. She didn't react at first. She read the details carefully, scrolling once, then again. The cabin. The same one where she had been told she was invited out of kindness. The photographs were recent, the description polished, the price confident. Cassian walked into the room, phone in hand. Have you seen this? She looked up. Yes. That place isn't supposed to be on the market, he said. No one told me. They wouldn't, Ilara replied. He frowned. What do you mean? She turned the screen toward him. Look at the language. It's already positioned for buyers. This wasn't a sudden decision. Cassian stared at it. This doesn't make sense. It does, she said. Just not in the way you're used to. His phone buzzed. Another message. Then another. They're saying it's temporary, he said. Strategic. Ilara leaned back. Temporary decisions don't get published. He looked at her again, searching her face. Why aren't you shocked? She met his gaze. Because this is what happens before bigger changes. The explanations came quickly. Too quickly. We're simplifying, his mother said over the phone. It's nothing personal. Markets shift, his uncle added. It's just timing. Cassian listened, pacing. Why wasn't I told? You worry too much, his mother replied. You always have. Ilara sat nearby, quiet. This isn't like them, Cassian muttered after the call ended. Ilara raised an eyebrow. It's exactly like them. He stopped pacing. You think this is about you? I think it's about control, she said. And control doesn't like uncertainty. He shook his head. They wouldn't. They already are, she interrupted gently. He exhaled sharply. You're reading into it. She looked at him steadily. I'm reading what's been written. Another call came in, another explanation. Same phrasing, same reassurance. Ilara watched his confusion grow. Calm sat with her instead. People who rehearse reassurance usually do so because they expect resistance. The first notification came from the bank. Cassian frowned at his phone. That's odd. What is? Ilara asked. Our joint account, he said slowly. It's split. She nodded. That's the next step. You knew? His voice rose. You knew this was coming? She didn't answer immediately. More notifications followed. Trust documents, requests for signatures, lawyers reaching out politely. They're restructuring everything, he said. Without telling me. Ilara stood. Sit down. He looked at her, startled by the firmness in her tone, and obeyed. This isn't chaos, she said. It's method. Cassian ran a hand through his hair. Why does it feel like I'm the last to know? Because you're the least threatening to keep comfortable, she replied. That's not fair. It's accurate. He stared at her. How are you so calm? She held his gaze. Because panic benefits whoever moves first, and I'm not moving yet. That night, the house was quiet. Cassian found Ilara in the study, reading. You don't seem surprised, he said. She turned a page. I'm not. He waited. Say more. She closed the book. I noticed patterns months ago. You didn't tell me. I tried, she said. You weren't listening then. He sank into the chair across from her. I feel blindsided. She softened slightly. That's how it feels when systems shift without warning. You think my family is pushing me out? I think they're securing themselves, she replied. And you're collateral. Silence followed. Cassian looked up. What about you? She met his eyes. I prepared. He swallowed. For what? For this moment. Cassian leaned back slowly. What did you do? Ilara folded her hands. I protected myself. He studied her, seeing something new. How? She smiled faintly. By paying attention. He shook his head. You're not explaining. I don't need to yet, she said. The weight of that settled between them. Ilara stood and walked to the window. When people believe you don't understand power, they stop hiding it. Cassian joined her. I should have defended you. Yes, she said simply. He nodded, accepting it. Some shifts announce themselves loudly. Others begin with paperwork, politeness, and silence. Understanding how power moves quietly teaches when to speak, when to wait, and when preparation is more effective than reaction. Ilara had understood long before the first listing appeared. And the crack, once formed, never closes the same way. Cassian closed the study door behind him, slower than usual. We need to talk. Ilara didn't look up from the document she was reviewing. We are talking. He stepped closer. No, this. He gestured to the room, to the quiet, to the stack of papers. This feels planned. She set the pages aside. Planned implies urgency. I'd call it prepared. You watched this happen, he said. You knew my family was shifting things, and you didn't tell me. I did tell you, she replied calmly. When? In pieces, in questions, in pauses you dismissed as caution. He exhaled. That's not warning someone. It is, she said. Just not the way you're used to receiving it. Cassian ran a hand through his hair. I feel like I'm standing in the middle of something I don't understand. Ilara met his eyes. That's how it feels to be excluded. He stiffened. This isn't the same. It is, she said. Only now you're the one being reassured instead of informed. Silence pressed in. You let me walk into this, he said. She stood. No. I walked ahead and left markers. You chose not to read them. He looked at her, searching. Why didn't you just confront them? Because confrontation only works when the other side is willing to lose something, she said. They weren't. You weren't. He flinched. That's not fair. It's accurate, she replied. Cassian sat heavily in the chair across from her. Say it plainly. What did you see that I didn't? Elara leaned against the desk. The way meetings happened without you. The language used around decisions. The timing of reassurances. You think I ignored all that? I think you normalized it. He looked down. They've always been like that. Yes, she said. And you adapted. He looked up sharply. You're saying, this is my fault. I'm saying conditioning runs deep, she replied. Love doesn't erase it automatically. Cassian's voice dropped. You could have told me it would get this bad. I did, she said quietly. When? When I asked why your mother spoke about me instead of to me. When I asked why you didn't correct assumptions made in front of you. When I said silence becomes agreement. He stared at the floor. I didn't want to start a war, he said. Elara softened slightly. Neither did I. Then why does it feel like one? Because the ground shifted, she replied. And you weren't ready for it. He looked at her. You sound like you expected this. I expected resistance to change, she said. That's not pessimism. It's experience. He swallowed. And you prepared? Yes. Not to punish. Not to win. To not be unprotected again. Cassian stood, restless. You keep saying that. Protected. From what? From being erased politely, Elara said. He stopped pacing. That's dramatic. It's precise. She continued. Protection isn't always loud. Sometimes it's understanding leverage. Sometimes it's making sure your future doesn't depend on someone else's comfort. He shook his head. Marriage isn't supposed to be like this. It isn't, she agreed. But structures don't dissolve because people love each other. Cassian's voice tightened. So, what did you do? She met his gaze evenly. I paid attention when it mattered. I made choices that didn't require permission. He stared at her. You're saying this without emotion. Emotion doesn't strengthen strategy, she said. Clarity does. That feels cold. It's honest. Cassian sat again. I feel like I failed you. Yes, she said gently. But failure isn't final unless it's repeated. He looked up. Is this you leaving? No, she replied. This is me explaining why I won't be unprotected again. Some lessons don't require conflict to teach them. They require awareness, timing, and the ability to distinguish between loyalty and self-neglect. The room stayed quiet for a long moment. Cassian finally asked, What happens next? Elara considered him. That depends on what you're willing to see. And if I don't like it? Discomfort isn't damage, she said. It's information. He nodded slowly. You're not angry? No. Then why does this feel heavier than anger? Because anger passes, she replied. Understanding changes things permanently. Cassian looked at her differently now. Not as someone beside him, but as someone ahead of him. You're stronger than I realized, he said. I always was, she replied. You just didn't need to see it before. He exhaled. I don't know if I'm ready for whatever comes next. You don't have to be, she said. You just have to stop assuming silence means safety. She turned back to the desk, signaling the conversation's end. Cassian lingered, then nodded. I'm listening now. Elara didn't respond immediately. When she did, her voice was steady. Good. Because the truth doesn't announce itself loudly. It reveals itself to those who pay attention. She had protected herself long before anyone noticed. And the story, reframed at last, was only beginning. Cassian's father had always watched quietly. At dinners, he spoke less than everyone else. He listened while others performed. When Elara entered a room, he noticed the pause before greetings reached her. When she spoke, He noticed who interrupted and who didn't. "You see things," he said to her once, years earlier, as they stood apart from the rest of the family. "I try to," Ilara replied. He nodded. "That's rare here." At another gathering, his wife dismissed Ilara's comment with a smile. He caught Ilara's expression, not wounded, not defensive, measured. Later that evening he asked Cassian, "Do you notice how they speak to your wife?" Cassian hesitated. "They're adjusting." His father studied him. "That's not what I asked." Cassian shifted. "Ilara can handle herself." "That isn't the point," his father said quietly. Over time, he observed more, how Ilara was excluded from discussions, how politeness replaced respect, how Cassian softened rather than intervened. One afternoon, he said to Ilara, "You don't demand space." She met his eyes. "I claim it when it matters." He smiled faintly. Good. What concerned him most wasn't the family's behavior. It was his son's acceptance of it. The disappointment came without confrontation. Cassian's father didn't raise his voice. He asked questions. Why wasn't Ilara in that meeting? It wasn't relevant. To whom? Cassian had no answer. Another time, "Do you believe love excuses inaction?" Cassian frowned. "I don't know." His father sighed. "That uncertainty is costly." One evening, after the family had left, he spoke plainly. "You married a woman with clarity, and you placed her in a structure that ignores it." Cassian bristled. "You think I failed her?" "I think you assumed affection was enough," his father replied. "That's unfair." "No," he said. "It's incomplete." Cassian sat in silence. "I built this family on discipline," his father continued. "Not comfort. Comfort came later. Somewhere along the way, you learned to confuse peace with avoidance." Cassian looked away. His father's voice softened. "I don't blame Ilara for protecting herself." Cassian looked up sharply. "Protecting herself?" His father said nothing more. He didn't need to. Sometimes disappointment isn't expressed through anger. It's expressed through decisions. The lawyers were instructed without announcement. "This is precautionary," Cassian's father said, "not punishment." "And the family?" the attorney asked. "They'll understand later," he replied. Documents were drafted carefully. Assets repositioned with intention. Nothing rushed, nothing reactive. He met Ilara privately. "You're not being rewarded," he told her. "This isn't compensation." She nodded. "I wouldn't accept that." "This is correction," he said. "Legacy needs conscience." She considered him. "You trust me." "I trust your restraint," he replied. "And your judgment." She didn't argue. "You know what this means," he continued. "Yes, you'll be criticized." "Yes, you'll be blamed." "Yes, good," he said. "Then you're prepared." She met his gaze. "I didn't ask for this." "I know," he said. "That's why you're suited for it." Trust was established not through sentiment, but through observation over time. The letter arrived after everything had shifted. Cassian read it alone. "You loved her, but you didn't defend her. And love without protection is unfinished." Cassian read the line twice. Then again. The words didn't accuse. They clarified. He sat heavily, the room quiet around him. This wasn't theft. This wasn't betrayal. This was redirection. He finally understood. The assets hadn't been taken. They had been placed where responsibility lived. He whispered, "I missed it." No one answered. He folded the letter carefully. His chest felt tight, not from loss, but from recognition. The wealth hadn't moved away from the family. It had moved toward principle, and that distinction mattered more than money ever could. Cassian found Ilara later that evening. "You knew," he said quietly. She didn't deny it. "I suspected." "You didn't celebrate." "There was nothing to celebrate." He nodded. "This wasn't revenge." "No." "It was intention." "Yes." He sat beside her. "My father saw something I didn't." "He saw patterns," Ilara replied. "Over time." Cassian swallowed. "I thought power was loud." "It rarely is," she said. He looked at her differently now. I'm starting to understand. Understanding doesn't erase what happened, she replied. But it changes what happens next. He nodded slowly. Some legacies aren't preserved by tradition. They're preserved by accountability. Knowing the difference teaches when to inherit, when to intervene, and when correction is the most responsible form of care. The decision had already been made. And nothing about it was accidental. Elara didn't announce her decision. There was no argument, no raised voice, no moment designed to be remembered by others. She waited until the house was quiet, until the weight of recent days had settled into clarity rather than reaction. Cassian found her at the table, a single folder in front of her. "What's that?" he asked. "Logistics," she replied. He frowned. "Logistics for what?" "For leaving." The word landed without force. He pulled out the chair. "Leaving where?" "This marriage," she said calmly. Cassian stared at her. "You're serious?" "Yes." "You're not angry?" "No." "You're not asking for anything?" "I already have what I need." He leaned back slowly. "I thought after everything, after my father—" "This isn't about your father," Elara said. "It's about me." Silence followed. "I didn't expect this," he admitted. "I know," she said. "You were still hoping understanding would fix the past." He looked down. "I'm trying now." "I see that," she replied. "But timing matters." Cassian swallowed. "So, that's it?" She met his gaze. "This is me choosing clarity over endurance." He nodded once, absorbing it. There was no scene, just truth, spoken when it no longer needed volume. The separation was quiet. No statements were released. No narratives were corrected. Elara declined interviews. Cassian did the same. "People are asking questions," his sister said on the phone. "Should we say something?" Cassian replied evenly, "There's nothing to explain." Elara overheard from the next room and said nothing. Boxes were packed methodically, papers signed without drama. "This feels unreal," Cassian said one evening. "Change often does when it's handled with restraint," Elara replied. He paused. "You're not afraid of what people will assume?" "No," she said. "Assumptions don't shape my future." He nodded, slowly. "I wish I'd learned that earlier." She smiled faintly. "Most people learn it after losing peace once." Their final conversation in the house was brief. "I won't speak badly about you," Cassian said. "I wouldn't expect you to," Elara replied. "And you?" "I won't speak at all." He looked at her then, truly looking. "You're leaving with dignity." She met his gaze. "That was always the plan." Outside the marriage, Elara's life didn't collapse. It simplified. Friends asked gently. She answered briefly. "How are you?" "I'm well." "Do you regret it?" "No." At night, Cassian sat alone with thoughts he didn't share. He replayed moments, the pauses he ignored, the questions he deflected. He didn't blame her. He didn't blame his family. He blamed his own hesitation. "I thought love was enough," he said to himself once. But love without action had cost him more than money. Meanwhile, Elara moved forward deliberately. She didn't rush healing. She didn't rewrite history. She acknowledged the truth privately, where it mattered. Some lessons don't need witnesses. They need honesty. And honesty, once faced, doesn't require apology to be powerful. Cassian saw her one last time before she left town. "I hope you find what you're looking for," he said. "I already did," Elara replied. He hesitated. "Was there anything I could have done differently?" She considered him. "Yes. And now? Now you do it differently with yourself." He nodded, accepting that this wasn't rejection. It was resolution. As she walked away, there was no applause. No final glance designed to linger. Just a quiet departure. Sometimes the strongest exits are the quiet ones, not because they lack emotion, but because they are guided by self-respect rather than reaction. Understanding when to leave without spectacle teaches restraint, preserves dignity, and prevents pain from becoming performance. Elara didn't disappear. She simply chose not to explain herself anymore. Elara didn't disappear after leaving. She reorganized. Her apartment was smaller, quieter, intentional. "You're not lonely?" a friend asked as they unpacked boxes. "I'm focused," Ilara replied. She took calls selectively, declined invitations without explanation, chose mornings that began with clarity instead of compromise. One afternoon, a woman she barely knew sat across from her at a cafe. "I was told you understand transitions," the woman said. "I understand choices," Ilara replied. The woman exhaled. "I'm starting over. Everyone keeps telling me to wait." Ilara met her eyes. Waiting only helps if it's strategic. That word caught attention. Soon, conversations multiplied. Quiet referrals, small gatherings. "You should charge for this," someone said. Ilara smiled. "I will. Eventually." For now, she listened. She noticed how many women had been taught endurance instead of agency. How often silence had been mistaken for strength. "You don't tell people what to do," one woman observed. "I ask better questions," Ilara replied. Rebuilding wasn't dramatic. It was deliberate, and it felt like alignment rather than recovery. The work grew quietly. A rented room, 10 chairs, no stage. "I don't know where to begin," a woman said. "Begin with what you stopped saying," Ilara replied. Another woman crossed her arms. "Speaking up made things worse for me." Ilara nodded. "Then you spoke without leverage. That sparked discussion." "So, what do we do?" someone asked. "You learn how systems respond," Ilara said. "Not how you wish they would." The room leaned in. "These spaces weren't designed for you to be heard immediately," she continued. "That doesn't mean you're powerless. It means timing matters." A woman near the window said quietly, "No one ever explained it like that." Ilara met her gaze. "Because explanations don't benefit people who profit from confusion." The conversations weren't loud. They were precise. When the session ended, no one rushed to leave. "You should speak publicly," someone suggested. Ilara paused. "I will." The idea settled. Purpose wasn't found. It was uncovered. The invitation arrived without fanfare. "Small audience," the organizer said over the phone. "No pressure." Ilara replied evenly, "That's fine." Before the event, a colleague asked, "Are you nervous?" "No," Ilara said. "I'm clear." Backstage, a woman approached her. "I've never spoken in public before." "Neither have I," Ilara replied. The woman blinked. "You don't seem afraid." "Fear doesn't disappear," Ilara said. "It gets managed." When she stepped onto the stage, there was no performance, no projection. She spoke as if speaking to one person. "I used to believe silence kept me safe," she began. The room stilled. "It doesn't," she continued. "It only delays consequences." She spoke about restraint, about discernment, about understanding when endurance serves growth and when it becomes erosion. Heads nodded. She didn't raise her voice. She didn't need to. "Silence isn't weakness," Ilara said, "but it isn't always wisdom either." Someone whispered, "That's me." She continued, "Silence should be a choice, not a default. When it stops being chosen, it stops being protection." A hand raised. "What if speaking costs everything?" Ilara paused. "Then ask yourself what staying quiet is already costing you." The room absorbed that. She spoke about preparation, about not confusing patience with postponement, about dignity that doesn't require validation. "This isn't about confrontation," she said. "It's about clarity." Applause came slowly, then fully. Ilara stepped down, grounded. Backstage, the organizer whispered, "They were listening." Ilara nodded. They were ready. Cassian sat in the back row. He hadn't planned to be there. He almost left. Then he heard her voice. Not louder, clearer. He watched the room respond, watched understanding replace confusion. "She's different," someone beside him murmured. Cassian thought, "No, she's visible." After the event, he waited, didn't interrupt. When Ilara noticed him, she didn't flinch. "You came," she said. "I listened," he replied. She studied him briefly. "Good." He hesitated. "I see now what I missed." She nodded. Most people do. Eventually, there was no tension, no promise, just recognition. Some voices don't need permission to carry. They need alignment. Purpose gives language weight, and clarity makes it heard. Ilara didn't reclaim her voice. She used it. The first letter arrived without urgency. No courier, no signature required. Ilara recognized the handwriting immediately. She didn't open it right away. Later that evening, she held it between her fingers, considering. "You don't owe anyone a response," a friend said quietly. "I know," Ilara replied. When she finally opened it, the words were simple. "I'm not writing to ask for anything. I just wanted to say I see more clearly now." She read it once. Then again. There was no apology asking for forgiveness, no explanation trying to soften the past. Just reflection. "I didn't protect you when it mattered. I'm learning what that says about me." Ilara folded the letter carefully. She didn't cry. She didn't feel relief. She felt acknowledgement. That mattered. The next week, another letter arrived. No expectation, no demand. "I'm not sure if you'll read this," Cassian wrote, "but writing helps me be honest." Ilara smiled faintly. "At least he's learning timing," she murmured. She placed the letters in a drawer, not hidden, not displayed. Accessible, on her terms. The letters continued, spaced weeks apart. Cassian never asked for a meeting. He never mentioned reconciliation. Instead, he wrote about therapy, about silence he once mistook for peace. "I used to think avoiding conflict made me decent," one letter said. "Now I see it made me absent." Ilara read that line twice. At one gathering, a woman asked her, "Does he want you back?" Ilara replied calmly, "He wants to understand himself." "And you?" "I already do." Another letter arrived. "I'm not asking you to wait. I'm not asking you to come back. I just didn't want my growth to happen quietly while you thought nothing changed." That line stayed with her. Growth without entitlement felt different, healthier. Ilara realized something important. Accountability didn't require proximity. Change didn't require access. Some apologies aren't requests, they're acknowledgements, and those are easier to receive. Ilara read each letter when she felt ready. Sometimes days passed before she opened one. Sometimes weeks. She never rushed. "You're being generous," someone told her. "No," she replied. "I'm being selective." One evening she called Cassian for the first time. "I got your letter," she said. "I didn't expect a call," he replied, careful. "I know," she said. "I wanted to say something. I'm listening." "You don't owe me growth," she said, "but I respect that you're choosing it anyway." He paused. "I'm not doing this for you." "I know," she replied. "That's why it matters." Silence followed. Comfortable. "I won't keep writing if it complicates things," he said. "It doesn't," Ilara replied. "It clarifies them." They ended the call without promises. Ilara set the phone down, grounded. Healing wasn't something being offered to her. It was something she had already claimed. Months passed. The letters slowed, then stopped. Not because something ended, but because something stabilized. Cassian had changed. Ilara had grown. Neither needed to prove it. A friend asked, "Do you think you'll ever go back?" Ilara considered the question. "I don't measure progress by return." "What do you measure it by?" "Alignment," she said. "With myself." She understood now that love could exist without access. That connection didn't require sacrifice of clarity. One afternoon, she reread the first letter. "I see more clearly now." She nodded. "Good. Healing isn't about reunion. It's about agency. Choosing when to engage, when to listen, and when silence serves growth instead of avoidance." Ilara didn't wait for permission to move forward. She chose. They chose a small cafe by the water. Cassian arrived first. He stood when he saw her, then hesitated, unsure whether to reach for a chair or wait. Ilara stopped a step away. "You don't have to stand." He sat. "Old habits." She nodded. Some habits fade slower. They ordered quietly. No rush, no performance. I wasn't sure you'd come, Cassian said. I said, maybe, Ilara replied. Maybe means I decide when I'm ready. He smiled faintly. That sounds like you. She met his eyes. It is me. A pause settled. Not awkward, intentional. I don't expect anything from today, he said. Good, she replied. Neither do I. He exhaled. I wanted to see you, not to change your mind. She tilted her head. Then speak honestly. He nodded. I loved you without understanding what love requires. She didn't interrupt. That realization didn't come from losing you, he continued. It came from seeing you choose yourself. Ilara stirred her cup. That choice wasn't against you. I know, he said. That's why it hurt. Cassian leaned forward slightly. I still love you. Ilara held his gaze. I know. You're not saying it back. I don't need to, she replied. Love doesn't disappear because it's not spoken. He nodded, accepting the boundary. I'm not asking to start over, he said. Good, she replied. Starting over implies erasing context. I wouldn't want that, he said quickly. I need to remember what I did wrong. She considered him. Memory matters. So does responsibility. I'm learning to sit with discomfort, he said, not rush to fix it. That's growth, Ilara replied. Not redemption. He smiled, relieved she named the difference. They sat quietly for a moment, watching the water move steadily. I don't want to own you, he said. I never did. I know, she replied. But possession isn't only about control, it's about expectation. He absorbed that. I won't ask where this leads, he said. She nodded. That's wise. Cassian hesitated. Do you ever regret leaving? Ilara answered without pause. No, he nodded. I thought you might say that. I miss parts, she added. Not the structure. That makes sense. Love doesn't excuse systems, she continued. It reveals them. He watched her closely. You speak differently now. I think differently now, she replied. He smiled. You always did. They laughed softly, a shared memory surfacing without weight. I don't want to be a chapter you regret, he said. You're not, Ilara replied. You're a chapter I learned from. He exhaled, relief, visible. I'm not asking for another chance, he said. I know, she replied. That's why this conversation works. Understanding didn't require agreement. It required presence. They finished their drinks without hurry. Cassian stood as she did this time, mirroring her movement rather than leading it. Thank you for meeting me, he said. Thank you for listening, she replied. He paused. If our paths cross again, they will, Ilara said. Just not as they were. He nodded, accepting the openness without attaching meaning. As they stepped outside, the air felt lighter. I won't write any more unless you ask, he said. She smiled slightly. That's respect. They parted without promises, without plans. Some conversations aren't meant to resolve the future. They're meant to honor the past without letting it dictate what comes next. Knowing how to hold honesty without urgency allows growth to remain intact rather than forced. Ilara walked away grounded, not uncertain. Open isn't the same as unfinished. It's chosen. Weeks after the cafe, Ilara sat with one of the women from her sessions. You never raised your voice, the woman said. I keep thinking about that. Ilara smiled. Raising your voice isn't the same as being heard. But they ignored you. They listened, Ilara replied. They just didn't respect what they heard. The woman frowned. So why stay quiet for so long? Ilara leaned back. Silence gave me information. It showed me who felt entitled to my patience. That sounds exhausting. It's only exhausting when you mistake silence for surrender, Ilara said. I never did. Across town, Cassian had a similar conversation with his therapist. I thought staying calm meant I was being loving, he said. And now? The therapist asked. Now I see calm can also be avoidance. Cassian nodded slowly. She wasn't weak. She was aware. Understanding arrived without bitterness. Not all realizations require confrontation. Some require honesty, reflection, and the courage to admit that love without action leaves gaps others must survive alone. Cassian met his father for lunch. She chose herself, Cassian said quietly. His father nodded. And you learned something you couldn't learn while holding on. Cassian looked down. I thought protecting someone meant keeping peace. Protection means intervening when peace costs dignity, his father replied. Later that day, Ilara spoke with another woman. I stayed because I loved him, the woman said. Ilara answered gently. Love doesn't require self-erasure. So, leaving isn't failure? No, Ilara said. It's alignment. Cassian understood that now. Love wasn't measured by endurance. It was measured by presence, accountability, and willingness to disrupt comfort when necessary. Ilara didn't leave because she stopped loving. She left because she stopped abandoning herself. Some choices look like loss from the outside. From the inside, they feel like correction. Learning that difference allows growth to happen without resentment and teaches that love must protect both people to be complete. Ilara stood at the doorway after another small gathering. A woman stopped her. You didn't tell us what to do. Ilara smiled. I didn't need to, but I feel clearer, the woman said. That's the point, Ilara replied. Across the city, Cassian folded one last letter he never sent. He didn't need to explain anymore. He understood. Some stories don't end with reunion. They end with recognition. Silence wasn't weakness. It was observation. Love wasn't enough without protection. And choosing yourself wasn't abandonment. It was alignment. Ilara walked forward without urgency, without regret, without asking permission. If this story resonated with you, share it with someone who needs permission to choose themselves.